All right. It is 1:11 a.m. Sorry, UTC. That is 2 p.m. where I am. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Welcome to day 3 of our Mojaloop convening. We've got really good, exciting updates today. Most of them on technical updates, and really good updates for updates from what people have been working on over the last 2-3 months. It's really great to have you all here. This morning, we will start with an update from the Mowali team that will be led by Barthelemy, Sonko, Pierre, and Jean-Marc. I think I see Oscar in there as well. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Today, we will have, at the end of the day today, we will take what I was taught last night is called a screening, which is where everybody will be upgraded to panelist mode, and you'll have the opportunity to have your video and your audio on. And we will take screenshots of everyone, of all the participants, just for our memory. I look forward to that. And then for those of you who've been asking about the session recordings, these are now available on YouTube, on the Mojaloop YouTube channel. A quick tip, a quick shortcut on how to get to that. If you go to mojaloop.io/specs, where you'll find the agenda, you will find the presentations, and you'll also find links, direct links to those sessions in YouTube. So that's how you can get quick and easy access to them. I will stop there and I will pass it on to Barthelemy and his team to take us through the Mowali update. Welcome, Barthelemy.
Yes, thanks a lot, Simon. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Barthelemy. I am the CTIO of Mowali, and happy to attend again to Mojaloop. Okay. And we are proud to be the first use case of Mojaloop. Okay. And I will let John Pierre to introduce themselves.
Jean-Marc, you first.
John, you're muted. Do you want to unmute?
Yes.
Okay, so while maybe Jean-Marc has connection issues as well, I did lose the sound for a while as well here. So I'm Pierre Combelles from Orange. I worked on the preparation of this whole Mowali project from the early days, and I'm still very much involved with it as a support to the growing team of the Mowali company that is now live in Abidjan, has been live in Abidjan for a while, but I'm still very much involved in supporting them. So that's why I'm still here today.
Okay, and thanks, Pierre. Jean-Marc? Okay, I think we can go through. Okay, Jean-Marc works for MTN, and he also has a Mowali hat. Okay, as technology architect leader for MTN, and also in Mowali from the beginning. Okay, about the contents, we'll go very quickly on reminders, because I think people already know very well Mowali context and objective. To give you some update about key achievement and roadmap, and to talk about our main challenge, how to perform the FSP onboarding at scale. Okay, it is one of our big current challenge. The main challenge for operation, and also what Mowali is expecting from OSS. Okay, about Mowali general presentation, Pierre, I let you the floor.
I hope I won't have any problems with the connection. I seem to be losing the sound from time to time. So, but if I start, if I become silent, just ping me on WhatsApp.
Yes, from my side, it's very clear.
Okay, good. Just as a reminder, as Bart said, most of you know this already. So Mowali is a joint venture that was founded by Orange and MTN back in 1998, by 2018, sorry. Why Orange and MTN? Because we thought it was the right size to get started for an interoperable initiative, an interoperability initiative that would be for the whole industry, not just for us. But two big players were big enough to get the ball rolling, and not too big to be able to make decisions and to progress together. So that's how it started. But obviously, it aims at serving all mobile money operators with an interoperability service that uses Mojaloop as a core interoperability platform, a core switch platform. So what we want to do is allow people to send money to and from each other between mobile money accounts throughout Africa, but also between over time between mobile money accounts and bank accounts. But for now, we're still very much focused on mobile money accounts. And for that, we want to provide the industry with the tools to do this, which is common rules, essentially, because you don't want to renegotiate them every time. It takes too long. Align on standards to interconnect platforms. And that's where we used Mojaloop specifications, obviously. Of course, we need a platform to interconnect the different mobile money providers, and more broadly, the different DFSPs that will be using the service to provide, to route transactions, to handle clearing and settlement, and to manage the forex when forex is involved. So that's what the company is providing, essentially, to help foster money transfers. That's the first use case, especially international ones. We will see in a minute why more international than domestic for now, but also e-commerce and merchant payments over time. For now, the focus is very, very much on international money transfers, because big central banks are very much in the state of mind that they should entirely control the domestic money transfers, even intra-monetary zone money transfers, BCAO, for instance, in WAMU, or the BIAC in Central Africa, are not willing to let third parties perform the kind of service Mowali is doing for transactions within their jurisdictions. They want this to be done by a hub that they control themselves. So Mowali is focusing very much now on international transfers. And that's where we are. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So maybe you want to pick this one up, Bart?
Yes, thanks, Pierre. Some Mowali updates, okay?
But I can go ahead, it's up to you, really.
Yes, are you able to hear me? Pierre?
Yes, we can.
It's
go
okay?
ahead, Barthelemy, yeah.
Okay, no problem. Okay,
like...
so company has been set up in Abidjan, okay, and now we have roughly 17 people, okay. Platform was in production with we have a different set of environment, from UAT, staging, sandbox for DFSP integration until production. Okay, the FUT friendly user test been already done for 2 scenarios: local currency and cross border. Okay, it means between two different monetary zones, and we are happy to say that commercial launch was effective since 28th of May between France and Morocco. Okay, it was a very big achievement, and I would like to say thanks to all people from Modusbox and from Orange and MTN for their support, and also Mowali team. Our partner bank is Citibank, okay, and the question is open for country where Citibank is not there, okay. About our current roadmap, as we already set up cross-currency corridor, our main target is to have a scale, means to have a very broad scope of the FSP onboarded. It is our ambition, and that's why it is very related to the second part, which is how to perform the FSP onboarding at scale, how to enhance tools and process to support more operator. And we'll go deeply on that topic in next slide. Another big challenge for Mowali is to set up an autonomous QA release capability. Okay, and also to set up a business intelligence tool in order to be able to develop some features outside of the real-time platform. To enhance flexibility on forex rate and settlement management, because the forex part, the forex business operation is need to be improved, okay, as about the manner to manage the FX rates and to also manage the settlement windows. To refine operational processes and also optimize infrastructure, and also GDPR tooling. GDPR tooling is a big challenge because as many monetary zones are concerned by Mowali, we need to consider the different regulation about data protection. But in any case, the minimum is to deploy a good GDPR tooling, means a good data protection tool. And for this part, we need a very big support from the OSS. So at the end, Mowali is ready and open to collaborate with other schemes in Africa in order to make the dream come true. Our ideal is to have some footprint through the Africa, and to allow to be able to do international money transfer through different Africa's countries and monetary zone. Next slide, how to perform the FSP onboarding. Jean-Marc, are you connected? Hello? Okay.
We're trying to see
Jean-Marc. Yes, I think yes, he's connected through his phone, and maybe he has some issue. No problem, I will handle it. Okay. As previously said, the DFSP onboarding, okay, is a process where DFSP goes through different steps until from sandbox environment, okay, to test their proper development, until sorry, just. Sorry, this is my little daughter. So the different DFSP go through sandbox to production, and we got through our little experiences, we got some lesson learned. Okay, the first is we pass too much time for onboarding. Okay, and the different direction to improve it is how to make this workflow more shorter. Okay, for example, to move from sandbox to production directly, to avoid to use staging. Okay, staging is an intermediate environment between sandbox to production. Okay, the second is a key point. It is related to improve simulator capabilities. Okay, and it means if we are able to set up front of the DFSP a very good simulator which can act completely, okay, like DFSP with a full setup of features. Okay, we can do the acceptance, okay, with this simulator, and it may also help to ramp up the DFSP onboarding. Okay, also the lack of tooling, okay, to have some advanced connection tool to maybe helpful. And about the onboarding, okay, we are working with GSMA in order to set up some centralized platform, Mowali partner onboarding platform, to centralize the place for onboarding. It is some API place where all the FSP can go and connect directly, okay, to Mowali environment from a proxy, and we can have some tool and some process to help to ramp up these parts, okay, and with some kind of knowledge database and also security validation in order to replay quickly a very important part of onboarding with GSMA. The second part is security configuration. You know, as we are talking about money, okay, we have we demand a very high level of security requirement, okay. IP filtering, mutual TLS for transport layer, GWS certificate at application layer, and at the beginning, for the first time, we seen that it caused many back and forth and many difficulties to make the configuration ready. Okay, and I think this part of connectivity with configuration of security assets is a very important part on is a very important weight on delay, and we have several tools to improve it. It is the first is MCM, okay, in order to share the certificate, to ensure that certificate are the good one and respect the prerequisite. And the SDK supplied by Multisbox is also a good point, because he allowed to make the interface lighter, because we just use HTTP between SDK and the DFSP domain. And we need also to looking for balance between security and efficiency. Okay, just to, for example, to check if we need to run all the security layer on low environments, and to move this part only for production. The question is open. API misunderstanding is also a lesson, we can say hard lesson. You know, it is just a matter of implementation. When people are very familiar with Mojaloop, it's not a big deal. But when people who develop are not very familiar, we can have sometimes some breach. It means that we need to have a stream to update and keep the documentation up to date to avoid any breach in understanding. So another next point in real life, it is to demand internal acceptance report after Mowali API development to ensure that people are really ready to start integration with Mowali. So when we can consider that the global lesson learned is to have to improve tools and processes to ensure a good scale for onboarding. Okay, for me, I can go to next slide. Is Oscar there? Hello, Oscar.
Oscar is here. Oscar, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
I am here.
So, Oscar, yes, I'll let you introduce yourself. It is our big support, Oscar.
Yeah. We are working together with Bart to make this happen since a while. For now, my current position in the organization is the operation principal, and I am giving some help to Bart to structure the support team and to also to drive the operation in this very important step to get moving forward the service in live operation. Over to you, Bart. You want me to go through the point?
Yes, you can introduce this slide, no problem.
Okay, good. The most important topic that we were working on the last PI was to get in place the performance and resilience test characterization to give us the opportunity to understand how the switch really behave during the live operation. Please notice that in this case, Mowali is having, sorry about that, is having implemented Forex transfers, and it is considered a two-leg transaction, right? The originator is on DFSP and the destination is another DFSP passing through the switch. This is this is very let's see, very good difference between another type of operation and having the resilience and performance in place is going to give us the clear view how this works across all the components. But the time being, we've been working to spin up the operation acceptance test, which is the environment where we are going to run these two tests. One of the main issues that we've been addressing is to being able to spin up an environment equal to, as much as possible, equal to production, to really represent what all of these components running in production in OAT environment to have a more accurate results. In that space, we have had a couple of problems with the resource bandwidth on Azure. This is still a missing point with the Kafka cluster. We are expecting to resolve soon. And as part of this analysis, we have identified since a while a single point of failure by introducing the WSO2 component in non-HA configuration type. But for now, it is mitigating because we are using the failover capabilities coming on Kubernetes cluster. But still, it is a point to consider that WSO2 is running in non-HA fashion. Do you want to extend a little bit there, Bart?
It's okay, no problem. You can go through. Yeah, but no problem.
Okay. As second challenge is to implement to create a good stack of backup policy covering all the aspects of the platform, and after that to do the implementation of that policy, creating the process and procedure to certainly have covered all the main components. For now, we are using the very standard features coming from the cloud provider. It is good enough to start with, but certainly we need to have a combined effort with the security and compliance team to well structure the policies. As you all know, these policies is the base of to have a very good business continuity plan. So that is the next challenge that we need to address during this. As I said before, it is not starting now. We have started this long time ago. For now, we have well structured and standard procedures, but we need to consider that we are moving fast to a live operation, and we need to improve the backup policies in place. The always tricky and always painful implementation of the monitoring is not the exception here. We have chosen the Profana as as our monitoring toolkit, recently implementing and adding all the hub components. Sorry about that. I lost the Windows. Sorry about that. We have adopted the Profana, and we are for now covering all the resources. We have systematically all the main component of the switch, and in the other challenge is once we have all the components in place, we need to go through the service monitoring. We need to the main challenge there is to monitor the FXP transfers properly, and the corridors as well. We have had in the next point we have this release process. The release process has been improved a lot from at that time, but it's never entailed to get this as smooth, secure, and fast possible, right? For now, to improve the security on the releases and to get the automated testing tool implemented is our main concern. The next ones on business operation. This is very interesting. It is a very interesting point because it merged the technical part and the business part as well. So in this case, as I mentioned before, in the monitoring challenge, in monitoring queue and quality of service challenge, the business operation need to we need to improve in the business operation side how we are going to
yes, you know, the part is the challenge is for that part is to be able to set up a BI layer outside of the platform, because we consider that the platform, we should focus on real-time transaction on the platform. We can have some basic reporting capabilities, but we think that the platform is not designed to handle very detailed BI features. It is better to design a BI layer outside of the platform. About security operation, GDPR tool as a selection and implementation effort. I already raised this point before, okay? And also to implement and make operational the different security policies. We can say that they are main challenge for operation. Thanks a lot, Oscar, for your support on that. I will let the floor to Pierre to close the presentation about our expectation from OSS.
Okay, thanks, Bart. So some of you may recognize some expectations we've mentioned before. I would assume, is the sound okay, or let me try and improve that a little bit. Sorry, I guess the sound.
This is good. Yeah.
It's okay, Pierre.
That's fine.
But maybe it's better this way, isn't it? Okay. Again, we reiterate that because we did have a few issues still on this topic on when we onboard, when we integrate a new version of the OSS. Of course, we don't expect this to introduce any regressions or any breaks we wouldn't have spotted. So as few breaking changes as possible. B, clearly announced in advance and really highlighted in the documentation, right? I think I have an example in mind where we, strictly speaking, it's our fault. We didn't spot it. It was documented, but just like any other detail of the release note, right? So when something is going to change the behavior of the system in a way that could cause something that not to work anymore, so what we could call a breaking change, really communicate heavily on it and highlight it in all the communication you have about this release, because it can be very annoying. The example I have in mind is a variation on the interpretation of the API that used to be tolerated and was not tolerated anymore. And okay, it was documented, but not really highlighted there. So you know what happened, right? It broke because some of the DFSPs was using this margin, and the margin was not allowed anymore. So please be super careful in being very clear on any breaking change that is introduced if you introduce one in your developments. And then, of course, we mentioned QA. That's really. I think there's been a lot of improvement on that front, on every part, and okay, new releases are much smoother for us now, but let's remain very vigilant on this. I mean, we need to be able to deploy new versions confidently down to production, even if we have some traffic going on there. It's such a challenge to get this right at reasonable cost. So anything that can be done to improve this is welcome. We already mentioned the need for a stream to simplify operator onboarding. So we're pleased to know that there are initiatives going on in that space right now. So there are separate open source products that appeared, developed by Modusbox with an SDK that simplifies connection a lot, the mobile connection manager that simplifies the onboarding process, the exchange of certificates, etc. a lot of endpoints, etc. So this goes in the right direction. I think it was mentioned before that we needed to finalize all the steps that needed automation. An interesting point is that will be presented later today, I think, is the emergence of partners that provide test beds in a way that allow DFSPs to test against Mojaloop in a simplified way. And we're definitely going to be very happy to collaborate with these initiatives. So the GSMA was going to present one this afternoon. And that's definitely something that we'll be following with interest if they are able to ease our pains there to allow and to provide part of the support that early DFSPs need when they get acquainted with Mojaloop. On Forex, we're obviously following with a lot of interest the settlement stream that is working on very interesting facilitating features for Forex management. Although I confess I personally missed that presentation yesterday and feeling so guilty about it, but I will certainly look at the recording. The point I would like to stress here is, maybe I'm stressing it again, but it's so important. There's a very stupid challenge related to Forex, but that can be very embarrassing, is that we have two legs. And yes, it can happen that one leg gets committed and not the other, right? Which is embarrassing either way. If it's the first leg that is committed, then it means that we're taking the customer's money and we didn't do anything with it, so we have to give it back later somehow, which is not great. And if it's the second leg that is committed and not the first one, we have a DFSP that gives money away to their customers and never get the money from this sending DFSP because the first leg was not committed. And that's bad, because in that case the hub Mowali is liable, and it's not a theoretical case. It did happen. Okay, we're not expecting to happen again with the fixes that we made. We can never exclude it completely. So that's an interesting one that we'd like to fix in the long term with more radical measures to prevent discrepancies between both legs. Because from the hub's perspective right now, it doesn't know that these legs are really related. They're just settled separately, right? So that's a tricky one that we cannot ignore. Then another point is related to liquidity management or to what we could call physical settlement management, which is that in practice the way you're going to settle transactions, especially across FXPs, is going to vary depending on local conditions, and so there's a part here that is not really to be honest, it's not necessarily a very the same job as what Mojaloop is doing now, but managing how to actually prepare all the orders that are necessary to be sent to banks to perform the real money settlement according to what comes out of the platform is a different job unless you go for continuous gross settlement, but it can be a very different job to the real time stuff, and all the work that is being done on settlement at the moment helps us there, but we still feel that there's a lot of work to be done in the background to prepare all of these like mechanics with the bank. Not necessarily again the same skill set, the same expertise, the same job as the core platform, so it could be considered as something separate. But there's some intelligence to be put there to facilitate things and scale more easily from the perspective of the daily business operations that was mentioned on the slide before. And the last points are more, I'm sure that Bart or Oscar would speak a lot better about them, but I think they've made it clear and in a very interesting way, I think, how operations and support on the one hand and security on the other hand become a big part of the daily job of an animal like Mowali, right? So yeah, anything that can be done to facilitate the life of these guys is really welcome, because otherwise the costs go up very quickly. That's it.
Yes.
If you have any questions.
Pierre. Thanks, Oscar.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, thanks, guys, very much. This is Miller. Pierre, in particular, I appreciate your bringing forward the real-world challenges that you have where you think that the OSS community can be of some assistance. I want to reiterate the 1.2, which is that as we think about the evolution of the platform, there's a lot of good work that's going into things here, and we want people to be able to bring their best ideas. We have to remember that in each case, there is first a question of technical feasibility. Is this something that will actually improve the platform and its performance? The second thing is, what will be the cost to implement that? In terms of OSS resources and partner resources to actually make the changes to the OSS core without introducing unnecessary breaking changes. And then thirdly, what is the cost of Mowali and others to actually deploy that change into their own live environments? That involves more than simply the work you're doing already, the stream to introduce the simplified release management, which I think is a very good thing to think about, the ability to take the end of PI releases as they come out and place them into a staging environment to verify that they work, and then to inline them essentially with no downtime. That is the challenge that we would like to take on. But there's more to it than that. Also, of course, when we look at more significant changes, there will be a cost to onboarding those changes into your operations. And we want to be sensitive to that. In particular, I think the areas that you mentioned that sound quite interesting to me, one of them is the real-time, that you call it here, the Oscar, I think it was the real-time service monitoring.
Service monitoring. Correct.
Yeah, that's something that I think there has been some discussion about taking the TIPS and Mowali hub and service management tools and bringing them into some common form to understand, like, what is it? Where's the instrumentation parts of that, the sort of head end of it? Where's the part that the open source can actually manage? So I think that's an important structure we want to bring in. Where can we be helpful to you in this process? The other is this net settlement thing. As the settlement system improves, I think it will be worthwhile to have you guys evaluate where it's going, to be sure that at least the work that we're doing is relevant to how you imagine bringing your system more into conformance with the core system and not having to use this separate and specialized thing. I want to be sensitive of time, but I wanted to call out a couple of these things. I think the WSO2 high availability configuration is something I'd like to hear more about as we get into that. Service monitoring, I think that's a very key call out. I think you are right to say that the BI layer outside the platform is the correct strategy to think about, not on the real-time channel, but after real-time, to look at what kind of BI you can generate off of the truth database, but not as part of the core transaction platform. And then thinking about what can we do to simplify onboarding as we continue to iterate here. All of those things I think are really good call outs. I appreciate that very much. And sorry, Simeon, I know you want to keep us on track, so I'll limit my remarks to there.
Thanks so much, Miller. We are about 15 minutes over time. I just want to pass this back to Bart to see if you've got any last final remarks. And for anyone else with any questions or any comments, I would encourage you to upload it onto the discourse page that I just dropped the link in the chat. So Bart, would you wrap this up in a minute?
No, just say to OSS a big thanks because they did a big support for Mowali achievement, and we big expectation on operation, on security, okay, and also on the FSP onboarding, and we really need support on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bart, Pierre, and Oscar for your presentation. I would like to move quickly to the next session, which is the versioning workstream that's led by Sam, Lewis, Matt. I see Sam. I'm sure Lewis is somewhere in there. Sam, Lewis, Matt, are you guys ready?
Yes.
Yep, we are here. We just need to share our screen.
Yeah.
When you open it up, please, Bart. Hi, everyone. Lewis here. I'm wearing my Mojaloop shirt, but you can't see it. There it is. So you have to imagine that. So yeah, we're coming from the versioning stream. Actually, I think it was pretty timely to string together these two presentations. I don't know if anyone planned that. Let me know if you can see that. I'm seeing some funny things from Zoom over here. You can see it? All right.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. We don't have too long, but the thing I did want to say was we do address, if we don't answer some of the questions that Bart and the team posed just now, this versioning stream does address some of them around the downtime, deployment, and some breaking changes stuff. So stay tuned to the end of the presentation to hear what we have to say. So yeah, thanks Simeon for the intro. Thanks Sam and Matt for your help in the versioning workstream. So kind of a bit of a background for our PI10. This is the second PI that the versioning workstream has been active. This is kind of a little bit of a background. What have we been doing? We kind of have three main things that we want to share with you that we've been working on. One of them in the previous, previous objective workstream, we mainly worked around proposing a Mojaloop versioning standard, kind of this bundle of the different bits and pieces that go into a single cohesive Mojaloop version. So now Sam's going to be sharing a little bit about that implementation. We're going to be sharing a little bit about security patches in Docker, and how we can be applying with a reasonable amount of regularity and control security patches into live Docker deployments. And finally, we'll be sharing with you the results of our zero downtime proof of concept. So without further ado, this was kind of our objective for the PI. And then it kind of grew a little bit as we came up with a few other things that we wanted to focus on. The main one was just around this proof of concept, but we've got some goodies to share with you today. So Sam, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Lewis. Hello, everyone. This is Sam from the core team, been involved with several open source squads who are working on quite a few interesting things. On the versioning side, it's tough to follow the update from Mowali, but thanks for the feedback, especially things that the OSS can do to make things easier. This is one of the areas where we want to make sure we help implementers, and there are other things we'll cover in the core team update later. So we proposed in the last PI 10 meeting that we want to move to a more standardized version now that Mojaloop has matured into where it is now. Earlier, we had a PI and a sprint-based versioning number inspired by semantic versioning, where we use a x.y.z format for our releases on the services and Helm. And then we proposed that we'll move to a more pure semantic versioning, where we use the x.y.c in like a specific pattern, like the Z for a patch version, where we use it for a minor fix or a vulnerability fix. And then Y is used when there is a non-breaking change, functionality change. And X, of course, where we have a breaking change. So let's say if there is a 11.0.0, we will have 11.0.1 if there is a patch or a bug fix. 11.1.0 if there is a non-breaking functional change. But if there is a breaking change, we'll go to 12.x.x0.0, something like that. So we proposed that at several venues and forums at the mid-PI review in the last previous meeting. And at least we haven't heard anything negative about it. And also, I think, as we discussed with Matt and Luis earlier, we're trying to get ahead of the problem here before we have these challenges about versioning and schemes having to support multiple versions of deployments. So we want to start using this moving forward, essentially coming Monday. And if there is any questions, if you have any questions or challenges, please let us know. We can spend more time on this and go into detail in one of our breakout sessions on Friday. But for now, I think it's best for us to keep this short. If you have any questions, as usual, use the Q&A or reach out to us on Discourse or Slack or on Zoom chat. So just we'll leave you with this. We are currently, can you go back, Luis, please? Yeah, we are in version, yeah, it's probably not a surprise, but right now we're in version 1.1 of Mojaloop. Just easy to reference that instead of dealing with a lot of different versions. In turn, this version 1.1 corresponds to all those three things listed there. We have the APIs, the FSP Interoperability API version 1.1, Settlement API v1.1, Admin API v1.0. We have a Helm version, which was recently released, 10.4.0, and it includes those internal schemas as well. We had a version 1.0 with Helm v10.10. As recently we updated to update the support for the FSP API 1.1. We upgrade to v1.1. We're hoping that this will be easy for business product discussions, where we can refer to Mojaloop version as just x.y, 2 digits. Again, we proposed this in the previous PI meeting, and it seemed simple and favorable for everyone. So I'm going to proceed with that. The second aspect of our standards getting ahead of things is, again, a long-term support for Mojaloop releases. So far, we've been evolving rapidly. There were sprints, I think, in PI 8 and 7, where we had like 4 or 5 Helm releases in a single sprint. That is a 2-week period. So we've been rapidly evolving, but now we move to a more, relatively speaking, stable pace, where we're releasing at 2 or 3 times a program increment. That is a 2.5-3 month period. So this is our current proposal. We're saying that for the upcoming PI, we'll support the latest Helm release at the time. Let's say we have 11.0.0. Until we have the next Helm version released, we'll support that. If there are issues, bugs, we'll fix and apply hot fixes to that. From PI 12, we're saying that we'll support the last Helm release made in a PI. Let's say we are in program increment 13. Even during the PI 13, we'll support the last stable Helm release made in PI 12. So that way, we at least have some stability and clarity for implementers saying, okay, this will be supported for, let's say, the coming months. We're looking a little bit ahead here. Please let us know if we're getting ahead of ourselves, but without having something as a proposal is better than not. So for 2021, we're saying we'll support every Helm release for a period of 3 months. And from the next year, a period of 6 months, from 2023, we'll support for a period of 1 year. And beyond that, I think when we move to a more longer time support, the community make a call after reassessing at that time period.
Sam, quickly before you proceed, I wanted to make sure that we understood the LTS is long-term support, meaning that as they are deployed, there is active support from the OSS community to correct problems that emerge. Those problems may emerge in later releases and then maybe require a backfitting to those prior releases. And so this represents a resource commitment of the Mojaloop Foundation and its community. And so as you say that you move from 3 months to 6 months to 1 year support of all Helm releases, that implies one of two things: either that there's going to be a huge collection of Helm releases that could potentially be supported in different implementations, or there has to be a consolidation of the number of Helm releases that's done, so that there's fewer of those that have to then have this kind of permanent support. That would tend to slow down the velocity by which the changes could be made available. So I think there may be some discussion around this to clarify what we really mean and what the impacts would be on the community that's first waiting for new facilities to become available, but understanding that the community can't, under its policy, then release those until it's ready to support them for 6 months or 1 year or longer. I think that's a discussion we probably need to have with the stakeholders as well.
Yes, Miller, I agree. So instead, to avoid that matrix becoming huge and us having to support multiple versions, we are saying that at least until 2021 we'll support either the latest or the one that was the last stable release in the previous PI. But I agree, there will be a reduction in velocity at that stage. But again, we have to reassess, and we have to see how we can provision for those and cater for implementations who want the latest features. Yeah.
And just one final point, which is that what you mean here is the LTS support. There will be other Helm releases in between the LTS, but they're not necessarily being offered as LTS supported releases. So as new materials become available to implementers, they can be tested in test environments. And the recommendation would be that they are not yet LTS verified, but that they are available. So that the stream of available releases doesn't necessarily cut down, but the support for particular releases will be uneven. We'll have to decide when something becomes an LTS supported release, what is the, when does that occur as we go forward. For now, you're saying basically it's the thing that we just released at the end of the PI is the LTS release that until we have another one. And then it's no longer supported. So
yeah,
okay.
We want to get into that routine and mindset of supporting. This is short term, like speaking in relative terms, but we want to get into that habit so that when we actually do the LTS, we have everything in place, all the guidance and principles, best practice.
And there's a support here as well for the lab environments to be sure the lab environments are representing to the wider evaluating community what it is that's available, which releases did they support in their lab environment. And what would we want that to look like? Thanks.
There's one other thing I think actually to support the existing deployments, which Matt will cover in the what we call the Kubernetes patcher. Without taking too much time, we'll go into that. Thanks, Lutz.
No worries. Yeah, there's a lot kind of here, so we want to just kind of keep moving, but feel free to please post follow-ups in the discourse or just talk to us on Slack or whatever. I'd say meet us at the bar after the convening for a cheeky beverage, but that's not going to happen this time. Matt, shall I hand over to you?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Lewis. So this is Matt from Coil. I've been working on some various components of Mojaloop over the last sort of 18 months now. In the versioning stream, we came to a little bit of a head. One of the things we wanted to address was security patches of of existing Docker containers. So a case that would pop up is you've installed a dependency. That dependency was discovered to have some sort of vulnerability, and that vulnerability now needs to be up. That version needs to be patched, but no functionalities change with actually a deploy, like the actual functionality of the component being done. So for argument's sake, central ledger might have a database component and that had a vulnerability, but nothing's changed on that actual central ledger component, and we need to address this. As we got deeper into it, we learned that there was a pattern in, okay, skip on, if you go to the next slide, we can talk through how we do this. So we were investigating the various ways to do this, and there was two parts to it. There was one actually doing it, but the next actually like patching the Docker containers, but we also wanted to have like a suffix with our new versioning strategy. There wasn't a way to say nicely that we wanted to we didn't want to minorly or sort of do a patch on the actual LTE, the semantic versioning. So what we did was we devised adding just a patch attribute to the service being deployed. So you'll see that in 2 there, that you get this this patch now on your versioning. So if you got 10.4.1, we added .1-patch to signify that only the dependencies would have changed because a patch had taken place, and we would then deploy that. But now you run into this issue that like we found a security issue, or we were notified it through one of our service providers, and we've patched this Docker container, but how does the community know that this actually is released and it's an issue? In our sort of investigation phase, we found that there's a pattern that's emerging in Kubernetes called the Kubernetes operator pattern. So this is a very powerful pattern. The idea is that it's a piece of software that runs within your Kubernetes cluster that can sort of do operator level stuff to help with the management of the deployment. So we investigated sort of creating something we initially called the K8 patcher, but we've sort of more leaning towards the Mojaloop operator, which basically allows a piece of software to run within your Kubernetes cluster that can do roles that an operator, like offloaded from the operator. So the first sort of step in that was looking at how we can deal with these security patches in a more automated way. We've built a proof of concept that basically will look at a registry to see if there's any changes to your current, like you deploy it in your cluster, you deploy this operator in your cluster, and it will basically periodically monitor your deployments from Mojaloop and see if there's been any new security patches being applied. And if it has, it'll notify the operator that a new security patch is available for this for the specific service, and that you need to go and update it. So currently it's a bit of a manual process in the sense that you'll have to go manually update it, but at least you'll be notified that that sort of service now requires an update because there has been a security patch. I'm going to stop there and show you a rough demo of how that would work in practice.
Sorry, Matt, we might have to skip the demo. I know you've put a lot of work into it. We only have 3 minutes left. So,
well, okay. You sure about that? I mean, what do we have here? I want to make us somewhat fluid here. I think the demos are important too to show what it is that we've been doing.
Yeah.
We may have to compress some of the following sessions.
Yeah. So Lewis, it's really quick because it doesn't have to deploy. So like if I can share, it's
great.
Yeah, I've done a lot of the pre-setup already, so we can be pretty quick about this.
No worries.
Can you share? Can people see my screen?
Yes.
Share screen.
Yep.
Okay. So essentially, what we have here is we've got for our module wallet that Don will be showing later with some of the GSMA stuff he's been working on. We've got this deployed. So I'm going to take an example of like we've got the central ledger service. Okay, so if we go look at the central ledger service being deployed, it's got a version here of where is it? It's got a version of 10.5.2 already deployed. So what I've gone and done is I've deployed this Mojaloop operator into this cluster, so we can see it running over here. So now this then runs a cron job every minute, just checking if there's been any new security patches, and then notifies the operator that will happen via Slack. So we've done a cheeky hack. So I've just got an endpoint to say, like, do an artificial update of the version to check whether that's taken a place. So I'm going to do the world's quickest update of software. And we just got to wait sort of, it happens on the minute. So we just got to wait till that takes place. So we've got about 30 seconds here. And what we expect to happen now is that the operator is going to run and work out that it's not running the latest version of the software, and specifically that this software has had a security patch. So that's something that's very important to update. And what we're expecting now is that in the Slack channel, the operator is going to get notified that there has been a security patch applied for that container, and that please go and update that service to reflect the latest updates. Let's just see now. We should get it in a few seconds. There we go. So we've got this incoming webhook. We've told Central Ledger is not on the latest security version. Please update urgently to 10.5.3.
You can't actually see the Slack there, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. Let me share. Thanks for the heads up, Pierre. It's because I'm not sharing screens and there we go. Can you see my Slack now?
Yeah.
So we see there at the bottom of the Slack, we see Central Ledger is not on the latest secure version. Please update urgently to 10.5.3. And now the operator knows that a security patch has been broadcast, and that they can then go and update the cluster as needed. So I'm going to stop sharing there and just say that this is just the base service of this Mojaloop, like the operator pattern, but Kubernetes operators are very powerful. So we could allow operators to specify things like, we want you to auto-patch security updates because we know that they aren't changing functionality. And they could specify things like, we want to choose times when this would happen. So we know that our lowest period is 1 a.m. in a certain region. Please apply the security patches rather in that time period, so it minimizes the impact if anything did go wrong. And we can start expanding on this to help people who operate Mojaloop clusters to ensure they're running the most safe, secure, and latest code in an automated fashion.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. So the last thing to share with you is the zero downtime deployment proof of concept. So being mindful of time, we've kind of shared some of this before. Basically, our goal here is to demonstrate an approach for zero downtime deployments with Mojaloop. And some of the conversation in the past has been around, we have the tooling already with Kubernetes to do zero downtime deployments. The thing is that we've never really applied those tools. And so our goal here was to just try out a test breaking change within Mojaloop, see if we can deploy it in a zero downtime manner, and then kind of learn some lessons from such a deployment. So this is an example breaking change. We shared this last time, but the idea being that moving from Mojaloop API version 1.1 to 2, we would introduce a new quote ID field. This isn't necessarily going to happen. This is just an example. So what we actually have done is then, in our toy example, break down this single breaking change into 4 different non-breaking changes, which each have their own respective Helm release. So the first thing to do is to make an optional quote ID column on the database, on the transfers table in the Central Ledger database. Then we're going to add some support for the V2 API and have both APIs running alongside each other. Thirdly, we're going to then remove support for version 1.0 of the API. So only requests that contain the quote ID field will be accepted. And then finally, make the quote ID column, which we said was optional, so nullable, make that required on our table. So we can use this handy Kubernetes thing called a deployment, which is kind of a Kubernetes primitive, or actually it kind of automates what's called replica sets, which then automates pods. But basically it does rolling updates for us, and it will spin up the new version of the service alongside the old one. A few caveats to the demo that I will just briefly kind of start. I'm going to hand you off to the video that we have in Slack as well. Sorry, in the discourse as well. This is just a toy example. There's no API gateway here, so we're just kind of imagining there's an API gateway. We're relying purely on Kubernetes load balancers to do all this work for us. And there's no resource-based version negotiation, which we actually have as a standard inside the Mojaloop spec. We're also dropping support for version 1.0 of the API very quickly, just to kind of prove the point, but this might not actually be what operators want to do. And if they want to be backwards compatible to older versions or older DFSPs using the older version of the API. So we have code available for the demo if that's something you like looking at, but I will just briefly share the demo video. I shared the video. I did a video because I thought it would be quicker. So we kind of, we start with some Kubernetes services running. My display isn't as pretty as Matt's, unfortunately. We use the command line. So we have Kafka and MySQL running. We'll skip ahead. And the first thing we do is just install our very basic version here. So ignoring all these other commands, I do apologize for those who don't like looking at the command line, but this is the important one here. We're installing version 1.0 of our test versioning proof of concept application. So if we kind of continue on, let's clear those annotations. So now what we do is we have health checks, one for the central ledger and one for the ML API adapter. Each of these is kind of representing a version of 1.0. So we can see our application is running at version 1.0. And next what we do, once that's up and running, is we have down the bottom here a couple different tests. So, oh, sorry, here we go. I have to remember what I did. So you can see our 3 central ledger pods, Kubernetes pods running, and then you can see the 3 ML API adapter pods running as well. Like I said, there is a link available to this if you want to kind of see it in more detail. So I'm just breezing through. So on the left here, we have our test version 1.0 of the API. And you can see that this is sending a transfers request. And you can see that we got a 202 accepted. So this is all good. We should be happy with that. And on the right-hand side, we're going to send a version 2.0 request, which has the quote ID field inside of the query parameters. And you will see that we got a 400 bad request. And this is because our version 1.0 of the application doesn't support quote ID, or version 1.0 of the API. So now what we're going to do is upgrade to the, we're going to look at the database. So we can see that there's no quote ID field on the transfer table. Sorry, I know this is kind of skipping through it fast, but next what we just did then was install, oh, sorry, I paused the wrong thing. We installed the next version of the application. This is kind of the really important part that I wanted to show everyone. So we have these 2 deployment objects which are unchanged. And then inside of them, Kubernetes has created what's called a replica set. So here you can see the old replica set, just 4 minutes old. And then alongside it, you can see it started to spin up the new version of the application here. Wow, these drawings are really awful. It started to spin up a new version of the application here. And then you can see that reflected in these pods. So this central ledger pod, which has just started running, is going to start the migrations to add the optional quote ID field, like we kind of just talked about. So let us resume. Get rid of these annotations again. We can see those things, and if we kind of fast forward a little bit, you will see that they gradually start to spin up while the old pods are still there. So right now we're hitting version 1.1 on both of these services, but they will actually flick back and forth between 1.0 and 1.1. So this example doesn't quite show it, but you can, behind the scenes, there's multiple versions of the same application running at the same time. Now, if we check our table again, we can see that the central ledger added this, this quote ID field, and it is nullable. So it's an optional thing. Behind the scenes, our database schema has changed. Our application logic hasn't changed at all. But what this does is lays the groundwork to start doing the incremental changes to make this quote ID field non-nullable, make it required in the application. So I'm going to have to stop it there because I'm mindful that other people have other presentations. But feel free to watch the video. Feel free to talk to me a little bit more about this. What this does prove, if you take my word for it, is that we can do zero downtime deployments in Mojaloop with a bit of work. Just to wrap up, Simeon, Where are you? Here it is. I'm just going to share just a few of the kind of our thoughts, lessons learned, breaking changes. So kind of for OSS developers, breaking changes need to be decomposed into many non-breaking changes. And Pierre, I take your point, you very well said in the chat, which is we don't always know what a breaking change is. And I think there's going to have to be more work, or I guess just as we grow our testing capabilities, hopefully we can catch these breaking changes earlier in the release cycle. Also doing things like improving our release notes. There's tools and stuff available for us to make release notes more automated and do automatic releases. And there's also already ongoing discussions about database schema changes in the DA, so we're looking forward to contributing and participating in more of those. Final little lessons learned. One of the questions we didn't know was, can operators skip intermediate versions without downtime? And our answer is probably not. You might find a way, but it looks kind of tricky, at least in the way that we've set this up. There might be other ways you find to do it, but kind of taking this paradigm, it might not be that easy. And finally, every major API change will require its own upgrade strategy. So this, like I said, was just a toy example. This isn't kind of showing the case for every single breaking change. Cool, well, we can discuss this later because this is kind of what we're doing in the next PI, and I will hand it off. Thank you everyone for your attention, and thank you Matt and Sam for your help in this work stream.
Thanks so much, Sam, Matt, and Lewis. I will move on quickly. There is a link in the description, sorry, in the chat box there, for anybody who has any questions or any feedback. Please go ahead and jump on there. I see both Sam and Lewis are active on Discourse, so they'll be happy to respond to you there. I'll quickly move to Bruno, Martins, and Anant, the GSMA interoperability test platform. Bruno, are you guys ready?
Yes, thanks a lot.
Right.
So I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yes, we can. You're good to go.
Nice. So today what we will do is just a brief update what the lab is doing, and then Anant will go over talking about the last interoperability report that we made last weeks ago. And we'll go over about the platform, the last updates, and the roadmap that we're planning, and a short demo in the end of the presentation. So here, as you can see, just the update about the GSMA Interoperability Inclusive Tech Lab. So we released this mobile money API industry report showing how some operators are going to the other parts there. So it's a short video cast. Take a look later. It's a really good overview. We have the many paths to mobile money interoperability report as well there, and then we will go over more details. And we are coming out soon with some nice reports as well, and the API specification comparison on the industry, which is comparing the GSMA mobile money industry about ISO 8583, ISO 2022, Mojaloop API, so you can see the differences, the similarities that we have in each of those. And we're going to a QR code merchant payments, which is showing in details how the landscape around the world and the APIs that we have available. And next to that, we have GSMA Thrive Africa, which will be an online conference. It's free. Anyone can subscribe. The links will be available on the PowerPoint later once we share that. And we are going to have a mobile money leadership forum and the biometrics work streams that we start with really cool new projects inside of the lab. So just stay tuned on our Twitter channel, and you can follow up all these points. I will hand over to Anant. So he will go over about the report. Anant, are you ready to?
Hi, Bruno. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to share with everybody here that, Bruno is definitely the main act of this presentation. I'm just the warm-up. So I'll just take maybe 2 minutes to go over a report that we recently did in the lab. And it's very sort of, I've been hearing some of the presentations today, it's not at the deep end of the technical analysis like the presentations that I've been watching today, but it's more of an overview of the different technical models that can be adopted to enable mobile money interoperability, which is of course a priority topic for our industry. And it's just sort of a logical analysis of the various parameters that should be considered when deciding on a certain model. So Bruno, if you just want to go to the next slide. The report approaches it in a very simple way. It looks at the fundamental, if you like, the core foundational elements of any interoperable solution. And it does that by looking at these 5 elements, the connection layer, of course, that connects all the different entities of that solution. Also the settlement, how the actual money moves between these entities, governance in terms of, how do the entities that are connected to that solution make decisions regarding it, pricing and business model, of course, self-explanatory. What are the things you can do to charge for that solution, for its long-term sustainability, and finally, dispute resolution mechanism. So we are aware that you can look at an interoperable solution in many different ways. But we looked at these 5 fundamental components because we thought you can essentially boil down all interoperability solutions to these foundational elements. So if you just move to the next slide, Bruno. What we did then next was we looked at the different options, and again, very high level, under each one of these elements. So you can, at a very high level, again, I said, connection can either be a bilateral connection or not. If it's not a bilateral connection, it's some sort of centralized connection, which we've called a hub here. Settlement can either be pre-funding based, or there was a lot of semantics around this. We eventually landed on the term clearing based. I know there's a few people who probably think that's not accurate here. But we just meant to say either you're going to park the money beforehand or after the transaction is over. Governance, you can either have full control as a participant or reduce control. Pricing and business model, you can play with these things when you've got an interoperable solution. You either have a processing fee or an interchange, or you put a surcharge on the client. And finally, dispute resolution, you can either have a consensus-based model or an arbitration-based model. So we just move to the next slide, Bruno. We took these various parameters and we did different permutations and combinations of it. So what do you get if you take a bilateral solution, but you have, a certain type of business model and a certain type of governance. And so we arrived at, there were actually 8 scenarios, but 4 of them were not viable. So we've not presented them here. These are the 4 viable technical scenarios for implementing interoperability, which is basically the bilateral model, the aggregator model, and then there was a hub model. But because in the mobile money industry, we have this specific context of an industry scheme having been launched, we called it a mobile money hub model. And then you can also just have an overall global payments hub model. So, if you like, you can go through these diagrams later to say which boxes have been shaded in to give rise to what particular flavor of interoperability technical model. But these were the 4 viable technical models that we characterize in the report. And just quickly to the next slide, Bruno. And then we looked at the technical architectures of these models. Those are not represented here. But we then essentially studied what happens if you have a bilateral model in terms of the technical architecture. What is the implication of that for technical parameters, which are mentioned here, and on the commercial and business parameters? So if you have an aggregator-led model, what has that done to the API design and protocols, account identification, breakdown risk, who's responsible for fixing something if it breaks down? Those are some of the factors we looked at on the technical side. And on the commercial and business side, we looked at things obviously like CapEx and OpEx, what is the cost of getting the solution up and running, time to market, is there any differentiation between these models when it comes to pre-funding, integration times, your ability to engage with other stakeholders that are connected to you through that interoperable solution. And I think there was one more slide, but we haven't got here because the next one is just an overall position on the GSMA. We've been grappling with interoperability for some time. Maybe just before this, I'll mention briefly that what we've done in the report is then just do a logical, framework of the factors that should be considered when you decide on the right technical model of interoperability for your market. So those factors include cost, time to market, robustness, governance. And we did a kind of a table, which is not here, just to say that, on this particular parameter, for example, cost, this solution might be a little bit more expensive. So you should just keep that in mind before you jump into something. And that's basically the report is not to say this is the right model. The report is to say, don't forget to think about these things before you decide on a model. And it's just a kind of framework to think through what is otherwise, interoperability can be such a complicated topic. No other group knows this better than this one, of course. So here in the last slide, just wanted to reiterate that the mobile money industry is committed to interoperability. As Bruno mentioned, I think in the Mowali presentation, I heard it, or Bruno mentioned it, it's a highly interoperable industry already, and it wants to take it to the next level. We always maintain as an industry body that the interoperable solution should be led by the market. And of course, I know that Mojaloop is working closely with many operators. There was Orange and MTN earlier in these presentations. And it needs to be timed at the right time, basically. So I'm just gonna, this is the end of the warm-up act, Bruno. This is the report we've done. We would welcome any thoughts people have on the report. And like I said, it's not a technical document. It is a technical document for the GSMA, but not a technical document for this grouping. So I'll pause there and happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Anant, this is Miller. This is great. And I did have a look through the report as it came out. I think this is really good work. And I think it's an important part of it too, to bring the conversation along. And I'm also think you've targeted at this right level, that is to get your community up to the level at which they could then have an integrated conversation with some of the folks that are here. As far as that settlement question, I think it's important to put in context that what you mean by pre-funding is actually no settlement. What that really means is that DFSP-A has actually purchased property on DFSP-B's system, so that when you want to send money from an A customer to a B customer, the B customer actually gets money that's already been placed there in advance. So the e-money issued by B is actually owned by DFSP-A. They actually have a position on that other system. And so there's no settlement required. We clear directly against funds that are already available. Whereas what we're calling here clearing based, I think that's an awkward term because it mixes up the value of clearing and settlement that are performed by a Mojaloop style hub versus the multi-stage process that would be used by a settlement bank in order to perform this. I was hesitating first to say perhaps we should talk about good funds, but that isn't even really the right distinction either, because you could actually have a central Mojaloop environment where settlement appears to occur in real time, but it's actually based on line of credit. What it really comes down to in the end is what's acceptable to the participants, so that they know that when they clear a transaction, that it will not be repudiated, and that transaction will not be revoked, and it won't be rolled back later. That is, that it's final. We want to be sure that in a Mojaloop environment, we express the idea that a payment that is cleared, it's final upon clearance, which is exactly what you see in the bilateral pre-funded environment. Those transactions are final when cleared. Whereas in traditional banking environments, they're not final until they settle. And that's what leads to the uncertainty and the costs and a lot of the other shifting of costs onto end users that we want to remove. But I think this is really great. And I think that maybe some continued iteration on the way in which we talk about that one section of it would really help the conversation. But I think this is a great step forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruno. Sorry, Bruno. Miller, for actually, that was such a slippery thing for us to try and model. We came up with lots of different terms, but in the end, we just sort of landed on this one. But I fully take on board your point, and of course, the distinction you made between banking and what we are trying to do here in Mojaloop. So we may come back to you with a revised version of this report to validate the new terminology. But thank you very much for that. Bruno, go ahead with the rest.
Yeah, sure. So we will move now with the interoperability test platform. So we just go walk through on the latest release that we have, the final version, or actually the initial version, and then a short demo in the end. And then feel free to do any questions in the end of the presentation as well. So as you guys already know, we launched the platform on 1st of July. And that's just to give a point where we stand today. So we have some media coverage, around 12 media coverage, and actually more already. We have 61 Haast users and different 49 companies using the platform. So that's really great to see the engagement and how we did from the beta into today. So just to recap, what is the platform? The platform is made for two types of companies, service providers who wants to connect it to operators and using GSMA mobile money API so they can see how their system will be affected through an interoperable hub, and GFSPs, which is using Mojaloop systems to connect it with other GFSPs. So that's the two focus that the platform has today. We decided to build that to join the two key technologies. So it's the first environment that we are doing that today, support mobile money industry on the testing of the interoperability there and facilitate the ecosystem expansion, which is crucial for financial inclusion today. Why to use? We are validating the real system end-to-end real-life interoperable there, so you can see things happening. We are building that independently from the core system. So we want to be an independent player there to support on the testing side. It's a plug and play, so you can really use with just a short steps. It's a free and open source. So we have a hosted version, so anyone can use that. It's open source, so you can download the whole code. You can put your own instance app on your own environment, and you can also contribute back to the platform, adding new functionalities. We'll go there in the end of the presentation. What we have today under the hood, it's service provider and GFSP as a suite. So that's the biggest difference that we presented last time. GFSP was not available before, so now we have that. We have many different types of simulators. We have service provider, GFSPs, and mobile money operator as simulators in different points to simulate the different end-to-end connections there. We are using Mojaloop as the interop hub in the vanilla version, so no modifications on this side. And our trying to achieve it's a developer experience. So the platform will be for developers to test their developments and see how everything is going. The engine of the platform, it's driven by use case and test case. So our intent goal is being supported by our use case that we have in Mojaloop. It's possible to onboard in the platform, and inside of each of the use case that we have, we're driving by different types of tests. So the test case will be driving that between happy flows and unhappy flows that we will have in the system. The system validates 2 points, API schema. So we have the API schema for Mojaloop, and the API schema from the Mobile API, and automatically is validating every time the message is coming in and out. And we have the behavior validation. So that's a really key point for players to test the different behaviors on their system. So you can validate different business side there. So you can change in the data. So you can override it with wrong data to see what will be the behavior on edge cases. And you can simulate all the possible errors that will be there. The platform, it's being used by 2 players as a common service providers and GFSPs to test the system they are building, but also people who don't have an idea what the interoperable hub is and how it works. It's also a playground. So people can just go there, create a session using Postman as a fake system under test, so they can actually see the things happening. And they will be able to understand more about all the steps that you have to do a transaction in a really detailed flow. So today we're supporting 2 use cases, merchant-initiated merchant payment and P2P transfer, a mix between happy and unhappy test cases there. I will go over in a bit more details. And what we are offering is an end-to-end testing. So you will see the whole flow between all the GFSPs is happening. You have a full flow visualization, so you can see step-by-step what is happening and try to understand more details there. We are doing the message unpacking, so you're able to see all the fields that you have in the header, all the data that you have in the body, and so on. And every time that you execute a test case, you will always have a pass and fail result. So you can easily see where you have the problems and where you need to fix your system before going to a next round of testing. Once you're looking for the use case, as I commented, we have merchant-initiated merchant payment and P2P transfers. We have a mix of test case there. So we have approved and rejected flows. We have a test case with account lookup and without the account lookup. We start adding authorization codes, so you can see how that will flow, requesting OTP code. And we have several error flows supporting 500, HTTP error, 400, and etc. based on the API requests. On the P2P side, we have same approved and rejected flows, and then we are doing a mix between send, receive, disclosing, and non-disclosing. So any kind of GFSP and hub, they can see the difference of the flows, how the fees will be assembled there, and what is the difference, and understanding in details there. And again, test case with account lookup and without. So if you already know how the account lookup is doing and want to see it faster, you can just remove this step and just execute without that, knowing the address of the GFSP on the other side. The new test use case that should come, just a short list that will be coming, and over the roadmap, I will clarify a bit more how we are pretending to assembling over the next Q3 and Q4 the new use case on the platform, as well as new features. So as some highlights here, so we have a dashboard so you can track your evolution on day-to-day, where you are, so we can see all this data there. It's a plug-and-play scenario, so you just have 2 steps to configure. You need to provide your URL for your system under test, and then you need to configure your system with 1 or 2 URLs from the service provider who will be sending the messages and from the Mojaloop hub on the platform, and then you're ready to go. We have a series of pre-built test cases, so people don't need to think about that. They can just join and execute that. It's easy to understand the flow, so what you're trying to do, we put a diagram in all the test cases so you can see step by step and where the messages are going. So you can easily understand that, how the flow happens. If you think in a P2P transaction, you can easily go to 9, 10 steps. So, but sometimes it's difficult to visualize, so you can easily go to the diagram to see that happens. And the automatic validation. So every time that you execute a test case, we have a pass or fail. And once it's fail, you can just click on the assertion and then you can see the detail and understand why it's failed there. If it's because of business rule it's failing, or even an API schema is not correctly. So that's what we have in the platform. And how you can contribute, we launched together with the platform some documentation. So as docs, interop, GSMA, inclusive techlab.io. There you can see all the documentation that you have, how to install your own version of the platform, how you can contribute to the platform, how you can create a use case and test case and help us to improve the platform. The whole platform, it's an open source project under MIT license, so feel free to contribute again. It's everything on GitHub. If you need any support, you can contact us directly on GitHub or even by email. How overview on the roadmap, what we are planning. So on Q3 and Q4, the main things will be new use case that we're looking. So for Q3, customer initiating merchant payment, agent initiate cash out, refund and book payments, and we are adding some features there. A message log. We noticed that sometimes once you're executing, you can send into different URLs and you'll not see the message coming out. So we are creating a pool of messages where you can capture all those messages that's not matching. So you can understand that once you are doing something wrong over your test. And we're grouping of users, so you will be able to share the sessions between this group. So you can share the results and collaborate as a group. Same thing on the Q4, we are adding a couple of more use cases and some features side. We'll be able to edit a session, so remove an add test case that something is happening, and some to be defined, some new use cases and some features that we are looking to add to the platform as well. We already have some other companies who is collaborating on the platform, so we're starting onboarding some other developers on the platform to improve even more. And just to show the highlights, I will share my screen again, showing some short demo on the platform.
And Bruno, as you're setting that up, this is Matt. I love that this platform is available to basically anybody, not just mobile telcos. Quick question on folks who are in it. Is it considered public information, the parties who are using the lab, or is it private?
We are not disclosing the companies because we have GDPR as over the registration, so that's the reason. So we have different 4-9 companies there, but we can definitely collaborate on how to achieve that.
Cool. I think that's almost a feature, right? Folks don't have to be public that they're using the lab.
Yeah, the idea is to make it even the results once you have, so no one can see your results, so you're completely not sharing your data. With the new functionality where you can group users, then you will be able to choose from where and who will be able to see that. So it will be complete on the user hands.
Great.
So I already set up some session here just to make our demo fast. So if I open here, you can see that I execute a couple of the test case. I will just run from my system under test some more executions on our side, and then you will be able to see that popping up on the platform. What happens here, we have a bunch of test cases which will be executed. So every time that I refresh my screen, you will see that the new executions are coming up on the screen here as an incomplete, and then you can see once it's finalizing. A bunch of test cases will be executed. The numbers is just increasing every time, and you can see the results will be changing there. I will just open one, which is just executed now. You can see the details of each of the test case. So you're able to see the full test flow. So here you can understand what is the intermediate steps that you have to make it happen. So from the count lookup, quotes, and transfer, that's a happy flow here. And you have all the preconditions. So here we are trying to raise up all the key points from the user to understand what they need to set up on their test environment. If that's too much text for developers, we created this part so you can see each of the test steps, and then you can see actually the real data here. So you can see the headers and body once you have in each of the messages, and you're able to identify an example of a real message and how that should be spun up. If you go to the test runs, that's actually the testing part. You will see the results, and every time you have a new step, two things will be evaluated. The spec validation, so here you can see evaluating against Mojaloop 1.0, and then each of the business rules that will be done. So if it's a P2P, you need to be a transfer, payer, and consumer to identify the transactions, so the test case will be automatically validating that to the end user. So that's just a short showing on the whole platform, so then we can save some time. Once you're executing on the merchant payment side, then the first message will be out from the platform. So you have the run button here. So it's kicking out the test case. And then every time that you have the message going back and through, you will be able to see the different messages. So you can see that here it's already passing everything. And then your test case is executed. So that's what we want to show today. And if you guys has any questions, and again, feel free to drop by email to us. If you want to join the platform, here's a short link where you can access and you have a bunch of information on documentation, and we're happy to onboarding anyone there.
Thanks so much, Bruno. Unfortunately, we do not have the time for questions. I will point people to the session page on Discourse for any feedback or any questions. But I do want to thank you and Anant for your presentation. Thank you so much. We are running quite a bit behind, but I do not want to take away your break. So what we will do, we will take a 3-minute break, and we'll be back with the OSS core team report out at, it's now, well, at 45 minutes past the hour, or 15 minutes to the hour. So we'll be back in 3 minutes, and we'll go straight into the OSS core team report out.